Welcome back to another Tracklon Podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. This week, we have got so much racing going on this weekend that we'll break down a few of the events from the Super Tri Esport World Championships to T100, and we also have Ironman Oceanside 70.3. But this week, we've got something a little bit special. Instead of just us geeking out talking about triathlon, we have professional athlete Matt Sharpe coming on the podcast to help give us some insight into the pro side of racing and hopefully help us out with some of the predictions. Unfortunately, he was supposed to be racing, but he's going to be out this weekend, so I'm sure he will have done his homework on what's going on with the pros in the field. So let's welcome him. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Jenna and Josh. Super happy to be here. Also a Mana athlete, so we're keeping it in the family. Keeping it in the family on this one.
There we go. Yeah. How have you been liking the Mana kit so far?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you can just notice the performance aspects of it. So for me, when I put it on right away, I was like, oh, this compression. Like I was not expecting that in the legs. I raced in it. Actually, of course I'd never tried it before my first race, but that's how much faith I had in the Mana crew, and they delivered. I think one of the biggest things I noticed when I did that race in Pucon earlier in January was kind of just the heat dissipation. It was a hot day. The sun was beating down. I was hurting for sure, but I think I did notice how much cooler I was. So yeah, there's just a lot of, I think, performance features packed into the suit for sure.
Well, that's great to hear. We're so happy to hear you're loving it so far.
Definitely.
And can't
miss it on the race course either. It's a pretty fancy suit.
Yeah, exactly. And, just being down there too, there was some good, I guess, support from the crowd for sure. They knew the Mana team and the Mana Fama, so we were rocking.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Well, why don't we introduce you a little bit more to the audience for people who don't know you're an Olympian, you're a fellow Canadian here. Why don't you tell us kind of how you got started into this crazy sport of triathlon, especially coming from Canada, where there's not a lot of law.
No, and maybe not the first, spot that people think of triathlon, but Canada definitely, for many years has always kind of been a hot spot, or maybe punching above its weight in terms of, its standing in the sport. Really, I would say, like a lot of people of my cohort, we were all kind of inspired by Simon Whitfield's Olympic gold medal in Sydney, and that was in 2000. I think I was about 9 years old that year, and I actually did my first triathlon that year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so really, I mean, I was also doing swimming and other sports, whatnot, soccer, but yeah, that was definitely a huge catalyst for, getting more interest in myself, interested in the sport. And really, I think I just fell in love with the variety of it. Like I said, I did it when I was 9, and then actually started focusing solely on triathlon when I was about 14. So definitely, and I'm 33 now, so long time in the game for sure. But yeah, I was also pretty fortunate that having Simon, I grew up on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada, and that's where the National Triathlon Center was. That's where Simon trained. So there was always this kind of high performance aura or high performance influence kind of on my environment. And when you see somebody win a gold medal in something, you're like, okay, well, we're good at this. We actually we know how to do this. Not just, ice hockey that Canadians are famous for, all of a sudden triathlon. So yeah, I think having that influence certainly drew me further into the sport as I got older.
That is very cool to hear. Yeah, there's something about being that close to that performance, and we see it time and time again with the Olympics. Like we saw the British kind of explode after Alistair Brownlee wins. We've seen the Americans step up the game too, and we saw Quentin Jorgensen, and the Australians forever were just dominating it. So it really makes a difference having that influence so young and just seeing that it is possible.
Do you ever remember, did that register for you at the time?
You know what? I did not play any sports as a kid, and I didn't watch the Olympics for the first time until the first time I saw Alistair Brownlee win it. So
crazy.
I got into triathlon and sport.
That's all right.
Take a look at her Instagram stories right now. The first trophy she ever held was an Ironman Podium trophy.
It's crazy.
But yeah, now it's very cool. And I've had the chance to meet Simon and stuff.
Awesome.
And it really made such a difference in Canadian triathlon. It was very cool to see that it inspired so many.
Definitely.
What was some of your favorite parts growing up in the sport, in the short course world, that kind of all right, this is something I can do, this is something I want to do? Obviously you had the inspirations there, but when was that moment that you're like, this is it, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, no doubt. I think, yeah, like I kind of alluded to, having that high performance center, there was almost like a gravity to it where, if you showed some interest or, whatever promise in the sport, they kind of had their eyes on you a little bit. And obviously I was paying attention to what was going on with that. So as I, started doing these kids races and eventually kind of went into the youth racing, we kind of, I think I had one of the assistant coaches at the center at the time kind of, reach out to my mom and say, hey, if Matt's interested and he wants to come down, maybe do a little training or something. And I think I did a training weekend at the center. Wasn't training with Simon at the time, but just kind of, being in that proximity just kind of led to the next steps in a lot of ways. So yeah, I was doing the youth racing. So I did, youth nationals. I did kind of the provincial games that they have in Canada, kept going up that kind of high performance ladder. And really every step I took, I wanted to take the next step. Even if I got kind of beat up at certain stages, especially when I was a young guy coming into the juniors, I was a little dude. I wasn't 6'4". So, but yeah, just loved every second of it. I think as I went on I kind of knew I had a bit of a skill set to potentially be successful. So I grew up swimming. I was in a swim club for many years. So I had that swimming background, which for the short course racing, yeah, it's pretty,
Definitely helps.
pretty important for sure. So I kind of was able to leverage that a bit. And yeah, I love to ride my bike, love to mountain bike, all that kind of stuff. And then I also ran track as a kid as well, just kind of normal kid stuff. And so I kind of had a bit of a skill set to succeed and definitely brought that into the racing. I had early success. Like I won youth races. I think in my second junior nationals, I was 17 racing against 19-year-olds. I came like second. And so just stuff like that, like, there was that. I ended up going to junior worlds the year after. Didn't have a great result, but again, just kind of hitting those steps in the ladders. And really, I maybe like a big kind of catalyst or certainly like a identifying point of when I was ready to really commit to high performance. Yeah, it was the junior worlds in 2010. It was in Budapest, Hungary, which was actually an incredible just place to race. We were really right downtown Budapest, which is spectacular. As an aside, but I came ninth there, and at that time, that was the best result a junior male had ever gotten at the World Junior Championships. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, like I'm in that pathway. I have the skill set. If you want to commit, which I did, it made sense for sure.
No, absolutely. And where was kind of that turning point where you started to get into the Olympic distance race and that longer distance, going to the TCS races? Kind of when did that shift happen?
Yeah, there was definitely some interesting moments as I progressed through from junior to elite racing. I definitely had some success as a junior. Then you kind of get thrown, at least at the time when I started racing elite, you basically go from racing sprint distances to all of a sudden doubling the distance racing Olympics.
No big deal.
Yeah, for sure. Easy transition. No, it was not an easy transition for me.
Still at red line.
Yeah. Well, you're basically like, I was still kind of a boy, and then I was jumping in with these men. So it just, they're just bigger than you. They have more experience, blah, blah, blah. So definitely a bit of a learning curve there. It was interesting though. I would say every year that I kind of was, going through the, I guess, high performance rungs, from as through a junior through till U23, I always had some kind of overuse injury. So, the classic like shin splints or stress reactions, tendonitis, all the itises. Like I always had something, but I was still able to compete at a fairly high level. Although until I got to U23, and after kind of having a few decent races, but then getting injured and kind of went through this injury cycle where, man, I just like couldn't almost really get to my potential. And at that time too, we, as part of Triathlon Canada, we were in a pretty high performance training group, actually training with Gwen Jorgensen. This was in Australia around 2015 or so. And really what happened was like I had just a spell of injuries after a bit of success, but definitely a long stretch of injuries. And it kind of came to a point where it was like, okay, well, I can't continue down this path because I'm not going to like reach my potential, and I'm not going to be able to get on the start line to, keep building through the rungs of the ladders towards ultimately the Olympics. And the kind of low point for me, I remember I like did a race in South Africa. It was a terrible result. I ended up going back to Canada for the summer, and the coach kind of just like ghosted me.
Oh no, that's very good confidence.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I don't even hold this against him like nowadays, because like I was definitely not the biggest priority. And you kind of knew that going in when you're in a group with like Gwen and whatnot. There's certainly a bit of a pecking order. So I think he was just kind of like, I can't deal with this guy when he's in Canada and I've got all these other athletes trying to win world championships and whatnot. So kind of through that period of, struggle, and I ended up coaching myself for a while, it kind of dawned on me that, okay, this injury cycle, it's constantly happening. It was kind of like, okay, well, what I've had different coaches through that time, many different coaches, what's the common denominator? And as it turns out, it was me. Like at the end of the day, different training, different stimulus. Maybe the Australia guy was a little bit too much stimulus, but that's fine. It happens. But really, yeah, I was the one who's deciding to push through these training sessions when I was hurt, when it ultimately led to me missing races or missing blocks of training. And so through that kind of period of struggle and difficulty, kind of figured, okay, I'm the one who's doing this, so I'm the one who can control, getting better and making better decisions. And then coming out of that, that's kind of when I was able to start getting more consistent in racing and almost had a return to, okay, I'm still back on the Olympic trajectory after that.
No, fair enough. And that had to be tough too, kind of dealing with that injury cycle, just mentally and physically, having to go up and down. And we've all been there, I think, at some point, but
Yes.
not with the same stakes.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you just like, I'd had so many injuries. Like this wasn't just like a revelation off like one thing. Like I had so many growing up, and maybe because I was growing as well at the same time. But yeah, ultimately that was I think one of the biggest moments of clarity or turning points in my career was being like, okay, I'm in control of, how I stay healthy and make it to the start line. So once I figured out how to kind of control that, then that's when things started just going up and to the right, so to speak.
And when you figure that out, I mean, was it changing coaches? Was it just something clicked and it all came together? And I mean, I consider you, I mean, you've got your Tempo News and you're constantly putting out amazing content. I consider you like a student of the game. Like you're one of the most knowledgeable athletes in the game who can speak to it and compete in it. So I'm assuming you're trying to learn as you go, but also make sure that you're continuing to step up in the game too. So was it just all of it coming together at once and that aha moment and off and running?
Yeah, kind of just definitely going to that low point and kind of really questioning like fundamentally like what is going on. Like I said, I had different, it wasn't like I had the same coach for years and years and was always getting injured. I had different coaches. And so ultimately I was like, well, I need to take ownership of this, because ultimately your coach can't feel what you're feeling. Your coach, you can only communicate so much. They don't truly know what's going on. They may have a pretty good idea, but ultimately you are the one who's driving the ship, and you have to make those calls. And so, yeah, just being like, okay, like if I really want to actually have a crack at achieving my dream of competing at the Olympics, like I need to take control of this situation. And yeah, once I decided to be the one who ultimately decides, what I'm doing, and if I have a training session that I'm maybe not feeling so great, like I have to be the one to decide, no, I can't just defer to my coach. Yeah, just taking ownership, really. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when it came to the short course side of racing, what are some of your favorite memories or events that you've done in that? Because you get to travel the world, see some cool places, and suffer a bit at the same time. What do you remember?
Definitely. There's been different like periods in my career. Man, I had a pretty extensive, luckily to have a pretty extensive short course career. So I was able to travel a lot. Always loved racing. I think anytime I got to race Hamburg, which is kind of the gold standard of the World Triathlon Series races. Always the crowds are amazing. It's in the city center. It just has like a world championship atmosphere, even if it's not the world championship. So anytime I got to race that was exceptional. Anytime I got to race in Canada was always just, I don't know, my game always raised for those races. I always felt they meant a little more to me. A lot of times in Edmonton and Montreal, they hosted a lot of races. So that was always a highlight. Yeah, you got to travel to some crazy places too. Like Romania was one that kind of sticks out for me. Like, I don't know if I'd ever go to Romania otherwise. Super random, super random. Yeah, a lot of just incredible places to compete in, and it's an exceptional way to see the world for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
When do you what was the whole? I guess you've now gone all the way up to the top. You're healthy again. You're competing. You're succeeding. What was the Olympic moment like, and going through that qualification process, and really, like, I mean, that the nervousness of it all, and now you're just going through it again with your partner and
Yeah,
your wife.
definitely. Yeah,
So you're revisiting it all again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that was a crazy time for sure. But I guess for my Olympic qualification, and this is kind of an interesting aspect too. At the end of the day, I was performing well, racing well, but in reality, when we were kind of getting closer to that 2020 year, Triathlon Canada, my federation, it was pretty clear they were going to do what it takes to kind of get a medal, or at least be in contention for a medal. And for me, because I had never really cracked that top 5 or so in the World Series, like I'd come in the top 10 a handful of times or whatever. But really, it was clear that my teammate, Tyler Mischuk, he kind of had that running pedigree that on a good day, he could potentially be in the medals. So ultimately, for that kind of Tokyo test event, Triathlon Canada kind of made it like a 2-up battle between me and this other guy for the right to be able to help Tyler try and win a medal. And ultimately I was happy to do that, because as I talked about earlier, that Simon Whitfield influence, I never would have become the athlete I am. I never would have had the experiences I had really in life in a lot of ways because of his influence. And so, and Jenna knows, Canadians, we don't get a ton of medals. So,
not the summer side.
No, not compared to the US anyway. So any medals that we get are usually kind of a big deal. And so for me, like if I could help play a role in helping Canada win a medal, to me that would mean the world. That would have been an incredible achievement. So in 2019, we had the Tokyo test event, and the goal was to help Tyler try and win a medal. And leading into that, like I knew he was training well. I was quite fit. So we were like, man, we're ready to just rip it up. Like obviously there were great athletes there. We knew it was going to be competitive, but we knew we were competitive. And in the end, we had probably the perfect race. We both swam well. We were in the front group. Once the groups kind of came together, I stayed right at the front of the bike, and he was right behind me, and I kind of guided him safely towards T2 and made sure that he wasn't doing any crazy accelerations out of corners that would hurt his legs. And, I dropped him off in T2, and next time I saw him, we were high-fiving on the sideline after he had won the race. So that was pretty awesome. And that was a huge signal for, Triathlon Canada, for the Olympic people in Canada to be like, oh, like these guys are potentially, medal contenders, because we'd won the test event. And then, there was that high. And then after that, there's the whole COVID situation, but kind of alongside that, I'd had a bit of a kind of not necessarily falling out, but an issue with the national coach at the time. And we'd always had kind of issues over the years, but it was manageable. But by the time COVID came around, it had become clear to me, like I couldn't stay in that performance center environment. Otherwise, I wasn't even going to make it to the Olympics. I was just going to probably quit, because it was so rough. And so dealing with that was super tough. And I had to leave the national center, which kind of made me a bit excommunicated from the federation. I think they weren't really happy with that decision. And because ultimately if you had someone who wasn't in the federation kind of succeed, then it necessarily didn't reflect well on the federation. So there was that whole thing going into the Olympics, leading into the Olympics. And so, yeah, that was quite difficult. It was, there's that high, the low of, the coaching issue, but ultimately, I was able to definitely prove that I was the guy to help Tyler. And, Tokyo was standing on the start line. It was, it was an incredible experience. And then the boat drove in front of us. So that was
crazy.
That was crazy. For me, it was a childhood dream, lifelong dream achieved. Unfortunately, we didn't have the same performance as in the test event. I think Tyler had suffered a bit of an Achilles issue, and those things are tough. So he couldn't quite get to the level that he knew he was capable of, which was unfortunate. But at the end of the day, I was never going to be the guy to get the medal, so I was always happy to help him, even if he wasn't 100%. Tokyo was incredible. And then, as you alluded to, Josh, the Paris build with my wife, Kirsten Casper, she had her own issues, injury stuff and whatnot, and a very, very competitive cohort to, beat to get on the team. But then, being in Paris and seeing, the crowds and everything, it was quite the contrast to Tokyo. That's for sure.
Yeah, a whole different feeling there. That had to be a little bit bizarre. The Tokyo experience, just not having those crowds and having everything, I guess, quarantined. How was the athlete village there? That would have been kind of weird.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, we did the COVID testing every morning, and you had to do it and get your results and all that kind of stuff. So you weren't allowed to go into the city at all. There was no, you were just so siloed in the village, even just in your building and stuff, because they didn't want people mixing around in case it was going around. And definitely it was eerie, because I remember when we were cycling in the race, and every time we'd come through the stadium area, it was just crickets.
That'd be so weird.
There was no, there was a few people, coaches and stuff, but there was no cheering or anything. Whereas in Paris, I was on the sidelines, in the crowd, and you would hear this wall of noise just travel around, and then it would start coming back towards you. And it was deafening. It was just incredible to actually be a part of that and feel it. Because I was like, okay, this is what the Olympics is supposed to be like. It was nothing else I'd ever experienced in triathlon. That's for sure.
At least you got to go experience it correctly, just on the other side. So
definitely.
A little less pressure on you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was probably, I would say, just as nervous, maybe more nervous for Kirsten's race than my own race, partly because ultimately I wasn't there to win a medal. So maybe that pressure was off. But I just saw how much effort she put in over the years, how, it was her third time trying to get to the Olympics, and she finally made it. She'd had injury issues, and, the lead-in probably wasn't as perfect as she would like. But I just saw how much work she put in, and I was just wanted her to have the best race possible.
That's awesome. Well, so you went from the short course. What was that moment when you decided that you were going to go into long distance triathlon, make that shift entirely?
Yeah, for me, my North Star was always competing for Canada at the Olympics. And once I achieved that, it really, to me, didn't make much sense to try and stay in the short course game and kind of continue that path. And really, at the end of the day, our goal shifted from, it was always try to get us both to the Olympics. But once I had achieved that, then it was like, okay, we're ride or die. We're doing whatever it takes, going all in to get Kirsten to Paris. And so that's partly why we moved down here to the US at Boulder, so she could be, in a great training environment and close to the Olympic Training Center, all the good resources and everything. So for me as well, being in that Boulder environment too, just it played a role, right? It's like a long course mecca, so everybody's doing it. So you're like, wow, I might as well jump into a few long course races. And I think after that whole Tokyo run, I'd sacrificed a bit for the team and whatnot, and so I was ready to kind of maybe have another go at some individual racing. And pretty quickly, 2021 was the Olympics, and then 2022 jumped in with my first, or second long course race, or non-drafting race rather, was that Olympic distance in St. Anthony's, which is actually incredibly competitive that year. Ended up taking the win. And so for me, once I did that, I was like, okay, like again, like maybe I'm good at this. Maybe I'm, it just kind of was like a signal. And so it just kind of went from there, really. And it also, because I'd done only short course, it felt like there was a whole different world of triathlon, which is actually, now I know, is the much bigger and kind of more impactful in some ways world of non-draft. And so for me, it was also just an opportunity to explore that side of the sport. And I'm really, really grateful I've been able to, because again, had a lot of great experiences in short course. And now I'm having a lot of great experiences meeting a lot of great people like yourselves in long course.
Appreciate that. So St. Anthony's, I mean, it sounds like there's still a ton of pros that just can't give up St. Anthony's from their schedule too. And it's you get all these races to choose from in the Pro Series and T100 and Super Tri, yet everyone still wants to go do St. Anthony's. What is it about St. Anthony's that you've loved and that others just want to keep going back to?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like anytime you get a win at a race or have a good result, there's always good vibes there. You're always like, yeah, this is amazing. Maybe if I went, DNF spectacularly in the first race, the vibes wouldn't have been as high. But really, that race, it feels like it's kind of, I don't want to say a throwback because it's thriving in a lot of ways. It just feels like a bit of like the heart and soul of the sport. It's an Olympic distance. You've got a lot of real amateurs, but then, they put up good money for the pro race, like better than most Ironman races, I think. Each winner gets like 10K. So ultimately there's a grassroots vibe, but then there's a huge respect for the pros. So there's kind of that meeting, that like meeting of,
That's
I don't know.
fun.
So for me, it's just like I finish, and then not too long after, like the age groupers are coming in, and I don't know, it's special for sure. There's just so much, I guess, history in that race as well. They've been doing it for 40 plus years now. So it's a kind of community staple. Going to St. Petersburg, that whole area as well. I think it's a great area. Like I always am kind of checking the Zillow there. Not in hurricane season, of course, but otherwise, it's just a nice place. The vibes are high. So St. Anthony's. Definitely shout out St. Anthony's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is a classic on the calendar, and lots of big names have raced over the years.
Are you guys ever going to race it? Are we going to see you guys out there?
Olympic distance, not my thing.
No, it's too short.
She could crush the duathlon though.
Okay,
there we go. Yeah,
I mean, lately they've canceled the swim, so who knows this year? Maybe a duathlon. Nice.
Turning to this year, though, unfortunately, you're out for Oceanside. Let us know kind of what's going on. What are your goals for this year? Where are you at?
Yeah, unfortunately, like I definitely would have been at Oceanside. I broke my toe. It would have been 6 weeks ago, and that was just silly. Like I tripped over my dog and landed on the toe. It was super dumb. So that happens. These things happen. Definitely would have been primed for Oceanside. Want to be there, to compete with these guys, and also just be a part of kind of that Oceanside atmosphere. There's a lot of good energy there. But for me, I think really when it comes down to it, I feel like I'm at this point in my career where, like Josh, you alluded to, like I'm trying to build the tempo and that whole thing. So, am I training to the maximum capacity that I have? Absolutely not. That wouldn't be possible trying to do all that. But really, for me, I love competing. I still love to race and train at a high level. So I always trying to scratch that itch. And really for me, just try and chase these podiums. It would be nice. Like the one thing that I'm sad about this year is that there is really not many pro options for racing in Canada. Cause if I had more, I would be kind of a little bit more fired up for those for sure. I don't know if I'm getting that T100 Vancouver start. Maybe I'll be like 2 days before the race, like, someone got sick. Matt, we need you. So I'll have my bike ready for sure to travel.
Look how many people jumped out of Singapore, and that was
I mean, this is the thing
race, right?
Yeah, that's a whole aside with T100, but I'll be circling around, in the paddock or whatever, the transition, be like, oh, how's that guy looking? Yeah. So, for me, yeah, it would be nice to compete in Canada and have opportunities to race. That's unfortunate. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to be competing at a high level, the best level I can with the time I have and whatnot. So whatever races I'm doing, I want to be on the podium. Generally, that's always my goal. So, and also, we'll see, but maybe a full distance debut in the fall, TBD. I know I got to do one.
You have, at this point, you've done all the other distances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just for me, like the limiter, I guess like where I lose most time versus my competition typically is on the bike. And unfortunately, the bike is like the biggest part of Ironman racing. So yeah, it's going to be, one of those things where I would love to just really have a good kind of couple month lead up to an Ironman just to put in the proper bike mileage mostly and see where we're at. But yeah, definitely need to do one. So that could be incoming in the fall for sure.
Is a TBD, like depending on like your health going forward, like how you perform at St. George or whatever else you got coming up? Like, is it all dependent on that, or
it's
you're
more
just trying to figure out which one to pull the trigger on?
Yeah, it's more like I feel like there's a few ones in the fall. There's like Cozumel, Arizona. I would probably lean towards something like Arizona because I used to train there quite a bit. It's kind of a nice place to go to. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool for sure. Easy trip, anyways, for sure from here in Boulder.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's jump into a little bit of the pro racing side of things and get some of your insights. Usually we kind of recap a bit of the races that happen on the weekend and then look ahead. And this weekend is so beyond jam-packed when it comes to pro racing. Since we are already talking about it, how about we jump into that Oceanside 70.3 start list and predictions? And oh my goodness, is this race packed?
Yeah, it's crazy. I got to know, I mean, the whole thing with this weekend, and honestly, in some ways, I'm happy to be an observer because it's going to be absolutely nuts on the course. There's kind of this, it's a really interesting situation. You have the first race of the T100 season in Singapore, and then you have Oceanside, which is kind of typically or traditionally the kind of like the kickoff. So you have these two competing races, basically competing for the triathlete or triathlon world's attention. I got to know, like, obviously you guys have seen the start list and you know what's going on at the races. If you could only watch one of the races, which one would you watch?
That's why I'm racing.
I love it. You can be at the live shot there.
Okay, can I split it up? For the men's side, I want to see Oceanside more.
Yep. Okay.
For the women's side, I want to see T100 more.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a good approach. That's
good. Yeah. No, I think it's going to be super interesting. I kind of want to see how, just compare the broadcast, compare the vibes, the social media vibes, all that kind of stuff. I'm curious to see how that plays out. But yes, Oceanside. What
let's jump in. So
let's jump in.
Got a few big names on the list. You might have heard of a few of these athletes.
One or two.
You're gonna go through all 75 men?
I think I'll pick out a few of the top names in there. Just keep it a little briefer. Although we could probably go 20 deep of recognizable names at this point. Like, it is insane. This is one of the first kickoff races for the Ironman Pro Series. We've had a couple already, but Oceanside is just this classic season opener. Everyone gets fired up about it for the North American kind of start to the season. And we've got, first off, Canadian Lionel Sanders. He shows up just ready to fire at this race like nobody else most of the time. We got Patrick Lange, Kristian Blummenfelt, Gustav Eden, Rudy Von Berg, Ben Canute, Brenton Curry. Let's see. We got Cam Worth. We'll see if he shows up or not. So
I think he is there.
He's already there.
I think he's there. Yeah. Confirmed.
He was trying to do some side-by-side like recon, and he got caught by somebody. So, yeah, he's there.
There we go. We also got Joe Skipper on there. Another Canadian, Jason Pohl, will be out there.
Nice. Mana. Let's go, Team Mana.
We got another Norwegian with Kasper Stornes. We got Ari Klau. So definitely some massive names on this list, and some names we don't see race each other too often between the Norwegians, Patrick Lange, and even Lionel with them too. So what do you guys think? What are we going to see go down in Oceanside here? Does Lionel have a shot at getting another?
What do you think, Josh? Lionel, what do you think? Give us your
I mean,
Lionel take.
it's hard to go against Lionel after what he did last year, and it sounds like he's had a pretty good block from the YouTube. But I mean, you could have thought the same thing going into Kona too, but that didn't work out so well. But Oceanside's a different beast when it comes to Lionel. I mean, the field's so stacked. I think the swim is a huge piece for him, and who gets out in front of him and how close he is, because there's some guys that could get out in front of him that could stay away from him on the bike, and then it gets difficult on a half marathon for him to catch up and make ground. And as he's aging, I don't think that half marathon is going to be his go-to weapon as much as it has been in the past. So I don't think Lionel is gonna get the win. I think we're gonna. I think Kristian is going to lay the hammer down early and be like, the Pro Series is the reason why this field is the way it is, too. I mean, you can see there are clear candidates that are people who have actually said, I'm going for the Pro Series this year, and they're here. And Patrick's trying to get his 70.3 world spot. So what kind of Patrick shows up? Not the Patrick from last year, finished, what, 20 something?
Yeah, me and Patrick, we were together on that bike. He led me astray on that bike.
The wrong turn.
He led me astray. I was like, I'm with the Ironman champion, world champion. Like, this guy, he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. I should have known. Wow, that's hard, that course, too.
That was early in the bike, too, right?
Yeah, that was before you kind of start going inland towards or like more in towards the base. And when we turned around, because we were like, we literally stopped, unclipped, and we were like, where are we? Because it was... just like, what the hell is going on? And by the time we came back, you could just see the tail end of kind of the big second group go through. So we were pretty far back from them. And unfortunately, once we kind of started riding again, that's when the headwind started kicking in. So any chance we had to kind of catch that big second group was all out the window. And he kind of towed me around for a while. That's ended up his race. He didn't see me much in front of him, that's for sure.
Well, what do we think? What are the odds we see another WTCS Bermuda style race where it's a Norwegian 1, 2, 3? Because we got all the players in here.
Yeah. I wonder with Kristian and Gustav, I feel like these guys maybe are slow rolling the beginning of the year a little bit. I don't know. I just feel like they're kind of really going to be firing on all cylinders when it comes to the Nice Marbella time frame, especially when the Pro Series really cranks down with the points. So that's kind of my thoughts. But yeah, it's another race, kind of what we saw this past weekend in South Africa, where you have this meeting of these short course and long course athletes and the whole new dynamic there, which is just going to blow things up this year. There's just a ton of Olympians, like just down the list. You got guys like, Kevin McDowell, I'm biased. He's my good friend. And he's an athlete who is training he trains insane, and he's incredibly fit. Just often getting to the start line can be an issue with him, but he's coming to this, healthy and ready to go. So I'm excited to see him. Obviously, Casper Stornes, Seth Ryder, Olympic medalist from Paris. He's had a great 70.3 at the end of last year. Another guy, Roberto Sanchez Mentacon, Spanish guy, just another great athlete. Jake Birtwistle, Olympian in Tokyo. So yeah, you just got all these Olympians coming up who are going to push the pace in the swim. You also have Greg Harper, who's the fastest swimmer in long course. Like, he's the fastest. And yeah, that'll string things out in the swim. But because there is so many bodies, I don't know if there's going to be massive gaps between groups. I think it might be more of a long line situation, which is actually to the benefit of someone like Lionel if he can place himself well enough off the start. Yeah, just incredible dynamics is what I'm saying.
The swim is definitely a huge determining factor. Being in the marina and knowing that factor this year for the first time ever is probably a big inspiration for Lionel. He knows he doesn't have to worry about the waves or even that being an impact. So
I remember last year he had a spectacular swim. Yeah. Like, I was leaving transition, and they were like, and Lionel Sanders coming out here. And I was like, what? Like,
no, he still had a minute and a half to run to get to the bike.
But still, that fact that I heard his name, I'm like, he's only 90 seconds down. Like, he rolled up on the front guys, like myself and Mark Dubrick, so quickly last year. So, yeah, I mean, I think this one will be quicker this year. But given what happened last year, I'm kind of curious to see if that same thing happens where, maybe he's just leapfrogging guys, enjoying that 12-meter, draftaroo as he moves up through the line. Yeah, Yeah.
I think last year too, we saw a little bit of separation on that first climb on the base. And like,
Yes.
so you kind of see that just always kind of being a huge impact, and maybe guys either overcooking that first one and then they're not ready for the second one. Or guys that are playing it safe. Like how have you kind of gone after that climb, and what have you seen when you get there?
Oof, I don't want to remember that climb last year. It was painful.
I got it in a few days. So
yeah, for sure. You'll do fine. You'll crush it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just based on the names who were here, you could just see with the race ranger too, all that good stuff. I don't know. There might just be a big old pack of like 20 guys. Maybe Lionel's in there because they're kind of looking at each other as they're going along. No one's willing to really take that risk because of the headwinds too, right? Those big headwinds when you're going like the last half of the race.
Yeah.
It's brutal. No one wants to put their nose in the wind for that long unless Lionel's paying them, or whatever. Like it's just the dynamics that way will be interesting as well. So yeah, I could see a huge group coming off together, or maybe a splinter of like 3 guys who are willing to risk it, but
Rushing on the
hopefully
bike,
they don't
yeah.
have people too close coming up from behind, because that run, if people are feeling good for that run, they'll fly for sure.
Do you think like Kristian Blummenfelt and the Norwegians and stuff being in the race here, will that mess with Lionel's head at all? Because it seems like he's kind of used them for motivation, but at times kind of seen himself not able to beat them. Well, really, Lionel is one of the most winningest athletes at 70.3s ever.
Yeah, I think he respects them for sure, but he's a cutthroat competitor, and like I talked about earlier, having those good vibes at a race, like he'll come into this race remembering the great memories. He'd be thinking of that sprint finish that year with Rudy, took him down. Just that kind of stuff, I think, outweighs having the Christians and whatnot in the race for him. And just how he played the race last year, it just, he smashed it. And I can't imagine he's much less fit than he was this time last year. So yeah, I think he's going to be, even if he's not up for the win, he'll perform very well for sure.
Yeah, this is his kind of course. Well, let's make some picks here. Who do we think takes the win in this race? We're going to start with you, Josh. Put it out there. Who do you think takes everyone down?
I don't think we're going to see Gustav yet. I think Gustav is that slow roll that Matt alluded to earlier. I think he's going to kind of work his way into the season and really focus more on the Worlds, where I think Kristian's really going after every point and every second and playing the cards for the $200,000 big check at the end of the year. And I think he is going to perform. It seems like from their videos and stuff that he is kind of ready to go. And if they get there healthy and he doesn't have stomach issues in a 70.3, I think he can make it through. And they've got a different approach this year. There's no Alexander Blue in their ear every second and all the lactate testing. So let's see how it works. I'm going to go with Kristian.
How about you, Matt? Who do you got here?
Yeah, I've got a Norwegian, but it's actually I'm thinking Kasper Stornes is going to be ready to go for the win. He's fit, he's hungry. He had that car accident before 70.3 Worlds. I think he just kept training afterwards. Like, this guy he's going to be king in the early season, and I think I feel like it could be one of these Olympians podiums. You got Kasper on there. I think my guy Kev, Seth, Jake Burr-Whistle coming off the podium, and he ran really smart in that Geelong race. So yeah, I'm always biased towards short course athletes. So there's that.
The other X factor we haven't talked about, I don't even think we've mentioned his name, is Justin Rielli, but I know he's coming off of not being able to run. But if he's going to be in the front, near the front, out of the swim, we know he can bike, and he's been throwing down some crazy watts and on his new bike. But I just don't know if his run's there to stay with everyone. But I think he can be a factor coming off the bike in T2.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who needs to have that 3-person breakaway and then have everybody behind kind of looking at each other, which is a possibility. But in this field, if he's coming off the bike with these Olympian guys, like they have that run pedigree. And yeah, it's tough going for sure.
No, definitely. Well, I'm going to go with the nostalgia pick and hope that Lionel Sanders takes the win here.
Yes, let's go.
Man, I think
it's not a bad pick.
Further out of the water than
you just see where he is out of the swim and maybe who's in his orbit. and then you can kind of figure, okay, let's see.
He goes from there. Yeah, it all
You
comes
just
down
replaced
to
me with that Canadian flag in that
That's
segment.
right. What about the women's race? What are the
Let's
thoughts?
jump into it here. So we have, again, topping the chart, a couple of Canadians with...
Yeah, you're going to have a Canadian winner out of this race,
right?
for sure.
Come on. We got Tamara Jewett, Paula Findlay, Jackie Herring, Danielle Lewis, Alice Alberts, Grace Alexander, Jenna Ryder. Let's see who else we got here. Oh, we got Melanie McQuaid. It's insane and inspiring. She's still out there racing and doing some good things.
I think she's going. I feel like I haven't heard her talk about it, but she's on the start list anyways.
She should definitely be out there. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a little less depth in the women's side of the racing here, but definitely some big names that'll be out there hitting and chasing down that win. And most of them were in the Ironman Pro Series. We don't have Paula Findlay in that. I don't think she's named a long distance or an Ironman race yet, but she always mixes up the race with
yeah, it sounds like she's racing, like she's only doing the Ironman series this year. She's not doing T100. Do you know?
No, Paula
So
is
she is
doing
doing
T100.
Yeah, she got an exemption for this race because of visa issues, apparently.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they got married, she applied for a new visa and can't leave the country in order to, like, during that process.
I know what that's about, so
Yep.
I empathize with her. Although I feel like she'd be happier going to Oceanside anyways than Singapore. I think that's not a bad move for sure.
No, definitely, especially with that heat of Singapore and all that travel. Oceanside will be a lot more fun. And I think Eric is debuting his film down there too.
Yeah,
Yes.
I got tickets, so I'll be there.
Awesome.
I'm gonna go check that out. Yeah, there's so much going on in Oceanside this weekend. Like Matt said, it's just the vibe is amazing. Even if you're just a fan and not racing, come down. I mean, it's such a cool spot to be, and the atmosphere is totally epic and really gets you fired up for your own season.
So with there's less bodies on the start line, given who's in the race, how do you think it's gonna play out?
Yeah, this one's a little tougher to call, especially early season. We haven't seen too much from anyone really on the start list here.
And we have a lot of long distance, like Ironman distance female athletes on the start list too.
And that's the difference. We've seen a lot of the Olympic distance athletes that we would sometimes see on this list are definitely doing the T100 over in Singapore. So I don't think we have that front end kind of swim pack that we're going to see in the men's side of things. I think it's going to be a lot more strung out at the front of the race here before we head on the bike, which, makes it maybe a little bit more honest on that bike course with a 12-meter draft zone. Yeah. If we have a little bit more separation going on.
Maybe more of a bike strength kind of race, which someone like Paula Findlay,
totally.
Lisa Baccaris, there's someone to throw out there. She's a great cyclist. If it really comes down to what goes down on the bike, yeah, she's definitely someone who can be up there. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Then you have kind of Tamara Jewett, who I think she is focusing on Ironman this year. She's doing Pro Series.
She's doing Pro Series, yeah. So she's not in the T100, and I think this is a huge redemption year for Tamara too. So I mean, she's going after it, and I want nothing but the best. And she loves Oceanside. She's already won Oceanside.
Good vibes. So. She's got the same Lionel win energy. So yeah, she'll be coming in with some good vibes, no doubt.
I think you're right. I think this is a race that, I mean, Paula's not in Singapore. She's getting to do Oceanside. She loves the whole atmosphere. They've got a whole thing going on all weekend and just probably good vibes and take a lot of the race day pressure off of her, which sometimes can get to her. And she'll have a decent swim and a great bike on a course she knows well. And I think of those bikers, she's also got the best run. I don't think Lisa's run's ready yet as well, but I could see Danielle Lewis running through and getting herself. And I would actually go Paula, Jackie, and Danielle as your podium.
Oh,
there we go. Yeah, we definitely saw her. And then, yeah, Jackie Herring was, I think, second in the Pro Series last year. So she's super consistent. She just keeps showing up, gets on those podiums time after time in there. So she's going to be a tough one to beat, and especially targeting hopefully to get to the next step in the Ironman Pro Series with that overall win. So she'll be chasing hard.
Jenna, who do you got for the win?
Man, I got to go with the Paula Findlay. I think just this course, that bike course, her bike strength, and just like Josh said, kind of those good vibes going in with Eric going with his movie and stuff, and the relief of not having to travel to Singapore and do a race in crazy hot temperatures in April.
Yeah,
belts.
I got Tamara. Then I'll take the other side.
There we go. Yeah.
If she does win, it'll be probably in the final miles, which would be a great race. We'd love to see
And that's
that.
always fun to watch. Yeah, with those
We
fast
want that
runners.
intrigue. We want that final mile just mowing people down.
My goal is to be on the course before
Good.
they finish. Be on the run course before they finish.
Well, and the Ironman commentators likely won't notice what's happening, so it'll be a last minute incoming of, oh, there's Tamara Jewett going through here.
I feel like those guys, man, they cop a lot of shit. I feel like the broadcast, like the production of the broadcast, is just so not great that they just have nothing to work with. These guys, I feel like they get a short straw. I think in a lot of ways.
I think it's tough too. Like with T100, they have people like Torsten Rad off to the side, like breaking down, looking at the numbers throughout the race and giving the commentators some of those updates of what's actually going on. And Torsten tried to do the same thing with Ironman. They just, I guess, weren't interested. So I think you need that person off screen that is looking at the actual numbers, giving time splits, because it's so hard to talk and watch everything going on and speak to what you're seeing and then try to do
triathlon.
some mental numbers in the background, kind of analyzing it. It just, man.
Well, speaking of T100, that's a good segue.
There we go. We have got T100 in Singapore going down this weekend. Like I said, I am very excited about this one. So the interesting part with this race, and there's a bit of kind of speculation and rumors going around in there too, because when the athletes signed these contracts, the race in Singapore was the race they absolutely had to be at to fulfill their contracts. So we were all getting geared up, even though it was going to be early season, going to be a hot race, to see everyone on that start line fit and firing and ready to go. It hasn't quite worked out that way. We still have most of the big names coming out to race, but we've definitely had a few other ones drop out here. And I think we had something like 6 or 7 wildcards on the women's side of things and a number on the men's side. So that definitely changes up the dynamics when it comes to race day. And the biggest shock, I think, for everyone was Taylor Knibb just announced that she is not going to make the start line there for personal reasons, which...
Do you have an inkling of what's going on there, or just personal reasons?
Completely dark on that one.
Yeah. On one side, it's a bummer because she's such a dominant force in the sport, and it's cool to see her race. But on the other side, it opens up
a heck of a female race.
A whole lot more people started thinking, oh, I can win this thing now. Which...
Ashleigh Gentle's like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of talk about how a lot of athletes didn't want to do this race, so they have to do it. But the travel this early in the season, dealing with those conditions is really tough on the athletes early seasons. We saw some athletes just completely burn themselves out in this race last year and didn't really recover afterwards. So I think a lot of athletes...
Van Riel is going to be like, what are you talking about? I just did an Ironman and here I am.
Martin Van Riel doing an Ironman 6 days earlier, 7 days earlier.
It's wild. I mean, yeah.
Unreal.
Man, it's crazy stuff.
If he is on the podium of this race, he is superhuman. Doing an Ironman.
He's not going to be on the podium of this race. I'll tell you that right now.
He's having a hard time walking after that race.
No.
Hopefully one day you feel that feeling, Matt.
This is the feeling I'm trying to avoid. It scares me.
Just don't back it up with another race.
Yeah, true.
In a painful way. It's so satisfying, but it makes things a little challenging. I can't imagine that travel after an Ironman to go to a T100 race.
For now that Knibb's not racing, then what is the women's race? How do you think it plays out?
Yeah, so we got some of the top names in here. We got Ashleigh Gentle, Julie Duran, Liv Spyram, India Lee, Flora Duffy, Lucy Charles-Barclay, Taylor Spivey, Mila Watkinson, Els Visser, Marianne DeBoer, Grace Beck, Marta Sanchez, and then we have a number of, like I said, kind of fill-in spots there. So
Marta Sanchez also raced in South Africa, right?
Yeah, she did. So she's
and Guillaume too. And did she race back to back then too? She's done 2 races this year, so that was her second. This will be her third.
That's unreal. But some of these wild cards are really interesting too. The last minute call ups, like Jess Learmonth, it'll be really good to see how she does with that killer bike strength. And then Kate Waugh has been coming up. She's a younger athlete who's definitely doing some big things as well. So I think we're going to see some of those athletes changed up. But Lucy Charles-Barclay, I'm so curious to see how she goes here. We haven't had like a fit and firing Lucy against like an Ashleigh Gentle and Julie Duran really come together in these series where everyone's on top form.
Yeah, she's someone who, like, you don't really know what she's doing for her training necessarily, but she's always putting out the content. So it looks like she's going well. I mean, if I'm just going off her what she's putting out there on social media, like she's ready to rip it up for sure. She's healthy anyways. She'll be
Yeah,
ready to
if
go.
she's quiet on social media, then something's going on. She's
Yeah.
not quite healthy, so
That's
she's putting it out there.
big flag.
So.
Nice.
Definitely.
It's an interesting race because, I mean, I think we've got a seasoned Flora Duffy now, too, and Julie Duran, and now they're removed from that Olympic distance just a little bit further, and they've had a full training block into a one race. And I don't know if we're going to see Ash Gentle run away with it or take the top step this year because of that factor. And like you said, those Olympic athletes are just on a different level right now. And Flora is still there later in her career. And I think it's going to be a battle. And depending on Lucy, I think the four of them that I've now listed, Ash, Julie, Flora, and Lucy Charles, it'll be really interesting to see who can take it. But
yeah, the athletes are battling each other, but they're also battling the elements in that race. It is oppressive in Singapore. I raced the Super League race years ago, and it was short. Thankfully, it was short because being in those conditions and competing is absolutely brutal. So a lot of this racing too, like it depends on how much people are willing to risk early on to go into the red zone if they need to. Because once you go into that red zone in those conditions, you're not coming back. It's it.
I did the corporate race there, and that was just like super, super short. And even then, it was just like, I am dying. It feels like you're trying to breathe through a wet cotton ball.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Ashleigh, like she has, I think, a lot of success in Singapore and in those conditions as well.
Yeah.
So
it's summertime for her right now, so she's been training in this, and like I even saw when I was on my ride this afternoon, she was training in a wetsuit in the heat and doing an open water swim.
That's a flex.
Just to get it. Yeah, right. And she's like, yeah, even Josh is happy with my swim these days. So I mean, look out. But I think that is again a huge advantage for her. Singapore early season, where others have been training in what we consider really cold temperatures, and you can only put on so many clothes.
Yeah,
definitely.
As Jenna knows.
Yeah, all the heat training these days. But yeah, Flora Duffy just got better and better through the season, more time on that TT bike. So I think she'll definitely be dominant. But then again, Ash Gentle, at the end of the season last year, she held on to Taylor Knibb through most of that bike course. So we could see some big things there.
Yeah, I feel like it's Gentle's to lose in a lot of ways. I think Duffy is either sniffing at that win or definitely on the podium. She also is great in hot conditions. She won in Tokyo that year, and that was also very hot. So she knows how to play those conditions. And like you guys said, she's improving with every long course race. So yeah, in terms of podium, what do we think?
Josh, who you got here for the win?
I mean, I would love it, Taylor Spivey, but I feel like anyone who's been in Girona doesn't have a shot. But we just
that's all I hear about how the weather's been rainy there.
We'll see. Now all these people in Girona have a chip on their shoulder. They're gonna say, "Hey, I got to prove Josh wrong."
Martin went and did pretty well in South Africa, but that's not Singapore. No, I think we will get a Julie Duran, Ash Gentle, Lucy Charles podium. That's where I'm going to go. I think Lucy's going to lead out the swim, but Flora's going to be there with her too. But I haven't seen Flora hold on to the big bike runners yet.
Mm-hmm. No, fair enough. How about you, Matt? Who do you got for the win here?
Yeah, I like Ash Gentle for the win. Just good vibes in the Singapore in the heat. Flora Duffy second, and Julie Duran third. That's my podium.
You know, I'm going to go Lucy Charles-Barclay. I think she's just hungry for a win to get out there and do something after all of this downtime. She will not be happy about that. So she'll be ready to fire. And then I'll go Ash Gentle and Julie Duran. They're going to be making that run interesting, chasing down Lucy Charles.
Nice.
Okay, let's jump to the men's side here. Again, a couple names racing. When it comes to the men's side, we've got the real deal, Martin Van Riel, got Cal Smith, Rico Bogan, Sam Long, Matthias Marche, Yuri Kulin, Brett Punk, Mika Newt, and Yella Geens. We can go down the list. Hayden Wild will be there. We've got the short course athletes showing up like crazy in this race. And I think they're going to mix it up with Leo Berger, Hayden Wild, Vincent Louis, Max Stapley, and of course, Tyler Miswichuk.
Of course.
He's going to be tearing it up here too. So we have an infusion of Olympic distance athletes like never before in this T100 series. And I'm really curious to see how it switches it up. That swim is going to be so much faster than it has been.
I will say when it's really hot like that, I feel like the swim gets muted a little bit. But
fair.
Also Vincent Louis in the race, so there is no muting really of the swim.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's like this race. There's just so much firepower in every aspect. Like whoever, I guess, if somebody wants to risk it on the bike, man, that's gonna be kind of crazy. But maybe they'll pull it off. Just the heat, though. The heat.
That's pretty much what Hayden said, right? Like he's like, I'm either going to fall down dead on the course, or I'm just gonna
he's
go
the
for
guy
it and
will
crush it.
If he's feeling it, he swims decent enough, gets to the front on the bike fairly early, he'll take the risk because he just does that sometimes. He can't not. He can't sit in and mark, he always has to run away from him and then get caught. Hopefully this time doesn't get caught by someone.
Yella, he's got that little competition going already.
It's just a lot of bodies, a lot of talent. Guys like Yella, guys like Tyler on the run, especially because they're so small, they're a huge benefit being in the heat. I mean, Yella's just good all around, so there's that. But someone like Tyler could definitely just chew through that run and scoop up bodies along the way.
I think we'll see if the fresh legs too. Like there are a lot of guys that have raced and now podiumed at other events with Yella and Martin too. If these guys were playing their first game of the year, this is their first race, I think it would have a whole different dynamic with those two coming in fresh. But because they have raced, I don't think they're going to be as big of a factor. I think they're with the dynamic of so many other people on the swim. If Hayden, like you said, can get to the front, I think that's a huge piece. But then you got the T100 veterans that are still going to factor into this. And Yuri's got a chip on his shoulder not to fall down dead at the finish line and win again this year.
For sure.
And grab the bottles along the way.
That feeling.
How do we all think Sam Long's going to do in this context?
I'm so surprised to see that he took the T100 contract. Like, I totally respect it because he's like, okay, I need to step up my game in the swim. This is going to be that development path to force me to get better at that. But with that much swim power in the front of this race with all the Olympic athletes, I think we're going to see him even further back than we have in the past. And it sounds like he started his training season a little bit later than he did last year. Last year, we saw him have a few big hitouts early in the season, but he hasn't quite followed that same schedule. So I don't know. I think he's just going to be too far back. There's no way he runs and bikes 4 or 5 minutes into these front guys. They're too good.
I'm just kind of confused with him. Like he talks about doing the T100 to like develop his swim and develop, but what has he done in training to develop his swim? Like I just haven't seen any moves, any decisions that would indicate that he's really trying to up his swim, other than just swimming a lot. I don't know. Do you guys have you seen anything? Because I haven't seen anything.
No, I mean he's working
hard. I
mean, it just always seems like his zone 1, his zone 2, and he talked about it in volume. Like that, those are his things, and like even his down days, his down weeks are still higher than most people's big weeks. So I don't know what we're gonna see. I mean, we didn't expect him to do what he did last year in Singapore either, and coming from back and finishing second for the second time in a row with Miami and then Singapore. Now he's fresh coming into this being his first race. So maybe those fresh legs, unless he's done too many of those shakeout rides out there. Maybe the fresh legs in Singapore will be something that he'll be able to run up with. But he's running with the elite runners of the world right now. And like these are the guys who jump into 10Ks and like with pros and hold their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm certainly not bullish on Sam having a good result at this race, just based on the context around him. I'm sure he's incredibly fit, but yeah, I haven't seen him do anything that would suggest that he's really focusing on his swim. At the end of the day, he seems like this year he's really like he's doing the T100, but like many athletes we saw last year, they were also doing the T100, but they weren't training for the T100. So
Yeah.
I personally think that's his move. And yeah, I mean, he earned the contract. He had great races last year, great performances. And so if they offer him a contract and the terms are of a certain way and he likes it, then he'll do it. I mean, at the end of the day, having him even tangentially involved with the T100 is pretty big for them because of his standing within the triathlon. Like he's one of those, I think, upper echelon pros that have massive followings and almost can get people who are not even that involved in the sport to kind of follow along. So yeah, I mean,
he's more of a celebrity
I hope they
in the
figure out a
sport.
way to keep him around as long as they can, because he brings a lot of eyeballs, he brings a lot of attention. But I just don't know after this first race what his feelings will be. We'll see.
Absolutely. So who do we got for these podiums here? Start off again with you, Josh. Who do you think is going to take this win and bring it home? Early season hot race?
Man. I'm gonna go against everything I just said and say Yella's gonna keep winning until someone knocks him off. Right? I mean, when was the last time he lost? I wish he had a chance to be at Dubai, but we'll see him in the grand final this year. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Yella, and I think Martin's still gonna finish like third. I think this is gonna be an attrition. Like we're gonna have like Sam Long's gonna run up into the top 5 or top 10 just because other people are just gonna drop.
For sure.
And
that's a good call.
That is what we are gonna see at this race, and he is going to finish the race because he's coming from behind, and I think he'll just have that mindset. But I think up front will be Yella. I don't know if Hayden gets on the podium. I think he epically crashes on the run, and just the heat gets to him until he proves us differently. Like he hasn't really handled this type of weather well in a big race. So, and then Tyler for third. I think Tyler's ready to go.
Nice.
Love it. How about you, Matt? Who do you got here?
Yeah, I definitely like the smaller athletes at this race. Just, man, it's just so hot on that run. I feel like, yeah, Yella for me, he's going to probably take the win. He's in great form. Like coming into this race, his swim isn't really going to hold him back too much. And if he's a little further back, he's got other guys who are going to come up with him and work with him to catch up. Him for the win. I think Hayden second, Leo Bergère third. That's my podium.
Fair enough.
Like a World Series race.
I'm going to go with Hayden for the win because he always kind of blows that last couple miles, and this is a couple miles shorter. So maybe
it is well thought out.
There we go. And also, so this year they changed the Singapore course too. So instead of 5 laps, I think it's 8 laps with that bridge and hill in it. So it's going to mean a lot of kind of that short, punchy kind of up and down in there. I think he does well.
And knowing exactly where you stand a little bit more too with the extra laps.
Do they get in a lap before Sam gets out of the water?
I think they will. Like,
I don't
honestly, with 8 laps, well, maybe.
We'll
it's
see.
A possibility.
That's a good betting thing. If they had DraftKings for triathlon, you could do a parlay on that.
I mean, I am in Boston. I'll go knock on their door.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Hayden, Yella Gaines, and then Leo Bergère. Vincent Louis. I'm gonna say Vincent Louis is gonna come back and start to do something big again in this middle distance. So I think he'll get out there.
Vince is always a good pick.
Yeah. Well, quickly to wrap it up here, we have one thing we always ask our pros that come on the podcast, a couple quickfire questions. Nothing too crazy, just to get to know you a little bit more, some random stuff. But we're going to start off with, what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten during a race or training? Have you ever just been completely bonked at a gas station or somewhere random in the world?
I think I've had like a pickle, one of those pickles or something.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was just so dehydrated and just like, I need salt.
Oh, the sodium.
Give me the sodiums. Yeah, one of those, like, I don't know, those pickles at a gas station. Gnarly.
That's a good one. That's a first, actually.
Yeah, one of those for sure.
I had a feeling Sharpe would come through on this one.
Yeah. I'm sure there's weirder stuff. I just can't remember. I was in a haze, a bonked haze.
There we go. If you had to race an Ironman paired with another pro, who would it be and why? And this could be someone who will either push you to go faster or just someone you like spending time with that you'd want to spend that much time out on the course with them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I always like racing with my friend Kevin McDowell, so probably him. I think he would beat me in the end, but maybe because I have a bit more long course pedigree, we would like somehow meet up later in
There
the
you
run
go.
or something. I don't know. That could be fun. That could be fun for sure.
I like it. And if triathlon had a fourth discipline, what would be the most bizarre activity that you could add that would give you the edge in the race?
They'll give me the edge in the race. The one thing that I'm really good at in actually like kind of triathlon sphere is band only swimming. So if they threw some band only swimming at the end,
Oh, man.
if it was like swim, bike, run, band only,
Yeah.
man, I would just roll up so many people at the end. They would be like, it's insane. Like sometimes I think I swim better band only than like regular. And people who I train with, they know my band only skills. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one, but that would be.
Died a slow death on some band only.
I know. It's no one's favorite except for me.
I like it. What's your guilty pleasure song that gets you pumped up either during training or race mornings or anything that really gets you fired up?
I would say there's this one like on YouTube. It's called Two Friends. They're like DJs, and they have this thing called Big Booty Mix. And man, that just gets me fired up. It's just like those like mashups of like pop songs or whatever.
You just got to stay updated because they keep throwing out new ones, and like, I got to get to like number 20, volume 28 or 20.
It's like, and it's just so, the thing with this stuff is too, it's so reflective of our like, you know, little attention span. Like you only get maybe snippets of like 5 to 6 seconds, maybe a little bit more of a song, and then it gets melded into something else. It's like, you know, your brain, it's like TikTok brain, but with music. I don't know. It's fun. So I like it. Not great for my attention span long term. You know, I can't pay attention to anything, but Big Booty Mix. Fire it up.
Check that out there. Then the last question, what's a piece of advice you've been given over the years that's kind of resonated with you?
Feel like a piece of advice, maybe from like a coach way back. I remember, you know, it's easy to get caught up in like numbers and hours of training a week, but really at the end of the day, it's about your intent in training, not necessarily like the content. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense, but for some reason that always stuck with me. And so, yeah, like I've talked about way back at the beginning of this, I feel like for me, being able to stay healthy and be on the start line, make good decisions around training, kind of falls in line with that. So just instead of focusing on like, oh, I got to hit 30 hours this week. Well, what if you just nail 20 like perfect hours and you keep doing that? I don't know. To me, you know, it's about the intent, not the content. So there you go.
Yeah, that's actually been a common theme on our podcast here, how you can do a training session or you can really do a training session.
Yeah. I feel like one of the things this year for me in my training is like figuring out what's the best ROI for time. So I'm trying to like collect those nuggets of wisdom. Maybe I'll do like a little book or something. I don't know on that. ROI for time. That's what we're all looking for.
There you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with us here and helping us break down the races. And it was really great to get to know a little bit more about your experience within triathlon. And we wish you all the best this season.
For sure. Thanks, gang. Thanks for having me. Lots going on this
Mana
weekend.
Kit.
Yeah, let's go. Mana.
We didn't even get to last week. We didn't even get to last weekend. Like, did Magnus throw down the hammer on the entire Pro Series?
He won. Yeah, I mean, he's going to win the Pro Series. You heard it here, I don't know, for the millionth time, I'm sure.
Absolutely insane. Well, we will be glued to all of the streaming services this weekend to watch all the racing go down, and we will be back next week to break it down. Have a good night, guys.
Cool. Thanks for having me, gang.